you'll be here for one or two reasons. Reason one would be you know me and you've come because you've been told to come and have a look at what I'm doing. The second reason might be that you've been surfing the internet, you were looking at conspiracy theories about JFK or the Twin Towers or outer space or something like that. And then suddenly what happened was you found yourself looking at a video of a guy standing on top of a cave in the middle of Northumberland on a June afternoon when it's windy. Well, you're welcome anyway, whoever you are. I've come to a moment in my life, it's one of those moments when you kind of like, if it was the movies, there would be a record scratch and then the hero would look at the screen or the anti-hero and proceed to tell you what's happened. You know, they'd be lying on top of a bunch of explosives and get blown up, or they'd be having their apartment door broken in by Eastern European gangsters. And what happens then is they proceed to tell you everything that's happened up to that point. Well, that's kind of what I'm going to do. It's not going to take a long time, then I'm going to tell you what I'm going to be doing next. But, you know, I'm just a lad off the estates in Gateshead. That's all I am. I've done a bunch of stuff, and I've been thinking and praying for 18 months about what to do next. And this is really about that. So I just want to tell you that, and please keep watching. I'm going to go now for a couple of seconds while I just take you through a bit of a montage of everything that's happened up to now. Hopefully that'll be quite quick and painless for you. And then we'll get around and have a look around this place and what I'm doing here and why it matters and why you should even care. So as you can see in this picture here, I was born early in life with a sense of humour, and I had amazing dress sense. And you can see from my eyes, before I could make sense of where I was aware of God, but not who God was. And by that I mean, not just you can see by my eyes, I'm telling you that's what it felt like. I've been aware of this God like ever since I was born. And my wife thinks that's like really weird and spooky when I tell her, and she may be right about that, but I just grew up thinking everybody was like that. And they give us this starry ball to hold and stuff like that. And you know, we had this image of this happy family life, but it wasn't. My mother was amazing and she was loving, and my father was insecure and cruel. And that's just really like so many fathers that I've met. And most of us, I think, in life are just a product of bad parenting. I mean, don't get me wrong, you might be absolutely amazing at it, but I wasn't, because I learned from him how to do it, and it was bad. And my mother deserved better, and I think me and my sister did as well. But you know, you get what you're given. Growing up, I loved football, and as an example of how cruel my dad was, when England were playing in the World Cup final in 1966, he wouldn't let us watch the game. He took us to Stanley Zoo instead, and I never understood that. My mother said it was just because he wanted to be cruel to me, because I love football and he couldn't be bothered with it. But look, I had team identity issues, and it's not surprising really. I couldn't decide whether to support Newcastle or Sunderland. So what I did, I decided to support Everton instead, because I really liked the royal blue kit with the white things around the collar and that. But later on I repented and I supported Newcastle, as you should. And you can really take that as a metaphor for life, really, because it works on so many levels. There's always going to be suffering and pain, no matter which team you support. And that's like you claim intellectual superiority and you decide it's better to support no team. And there's no such thing as football anyway, because like you haven't seen it. So my dad died while I was still young, and that was a real relief to us. I mean, it really was. I was there when he died, and oh yeah, I was upset, but you know, we were relieved. He left us nothing really but bruises and the green pajamas he died in, which I remember. But I learned to love him in later life, which is easy said when he was dead, like, but he's my dad, you know, and you've got to, haven't you? I came to terms with it anyway. I won a free scholarship at Posh School just after he died in the same year. And it was just because I was the cleverest lad in Gateshead and I had a dead dad. That's how you got in. And I always thought, like, that's a really hard thing to be, the cleverest lad in Gateshead. But it got me in, look, and I took the green pyjamas with me after they'd had a wash. And when I was 16, I became really rebellious. And at school, I masterminded this Tom Brown school day style break-in at the local cricket club. I'd seen this film, and I really liked the way the guy used technology to drill through this little hole in the window and put a little bit of wire through and open the window and climb in. But I nicked the hand drill from the woodwork shop in the school, and we shimmied down the drain pipes, and off it went. And it was pathetic, and it failed miserably. It was absolutely pathetic. And one of the lads just climbed into the place through the window anyway, and me mastermind plan was foiled. But what happened next is we're walking along, and we've seen this cigarette kiosk in the local railway station, which was pretty remote-like. And it turned into like this frenzied animalistic attack on it, and me three frantic partners in crime got really like wild animals, and I was looking on in amazement because I wasn't interested anymore that the drill thing had failed. I was only interested in that. But look, it's a whole other story. The upshot of it all was that two of us got kicked out of the posh school and two of us didn't, because two of us wanted to protect the other two because they didn't know who their names were. They had our names from some old boy who'd seen us coming back, and he'd had a drink and that. So the wild animals didn't get kicked out and we did. And, you know, it seems fair not. And my mother was absolutely devastated because I could have been a doctor, I could have been a politician. They said I could be a hotel manager even, or I could have been a bad PE teacher, but I was none of them things. I'd done really bad, and to make things better, what I did next was I thought I'd embrace alcoholism, because in my family, on my dad's side anyway, that's what you did. So I was like an apprentice alcoholic at 14, and a fully time-served alcoholic by the time I was in my late 20s. And I'd chosen this life of petty crime as my career choice because I couldn't be any of those other things. It just went from bad to worse, really. I did really bad things. I did criminal things, and I got in real trouble. And it caused me no end of pain. And it's only when I've had my own kids that I've really felt that for her. I got married. Somehow, I mean, amazingly, I cannot understand how that happened, but I did. I got married, but then again I did bad things, and I drank more, and I just drank loads, and I caused my wife loads of pain. Somehow I started a business with my friend. He was a drinking partner though, so mostly we drank a lot and played pool, and I was really expert at it. I got really good at playing pool, and I got really good at drinking. And what happened as well is we became brilliant at failing. We were two total failures. So I gave up on the business and just went drinking one day, and we ended up on the bank $3,000, and we somehow paid it back. And then me and my wife had kids. And that was like a real wake-up call for me. So I stopped smoking because I used to smoke a lot. I stopped smoking for the kids because, you know, I was having to go outside every day for a fag. Well, not every day, every time I wanted one, because I wouldn't smoke when my first kid came along in the house. And then eventually I stopped drinking for everybody because that was causing loads and loads of pain. But then what happened was, after I'd had all these attempts at trying to find this best explanation for this God I was aware of from being born, I made a decision that the only thing that made sense of the universe that I found myself in And you remember them starry eyes from the first picture. The only thing that made sense of that and the God that I was aware of was in the Bible. So I joined a church, and then what happened was I suited up and I got a bit smart and I started a business, and I actually ran that business for 20 years, and I used my business to feed us and to help other people. And then we had more kids. So look, if you hadn't guessed, this is called St. Cuthbert's Cave, and I'll tell you more about that later on. And I bet you even forgot I was up here waiting for you. Like, I'm going to come down now so I can show you around, and I'll tell you about what happened next while I'm on my way. So while I was running a business, it helped us to do like loads of good in the church. So we ran the Sunday school and the youth group, and we did like football and stuff like that, and lots of stuff in the local community. But the fact of the matter was that I know that now, and I didn't at the time, that I caused me my own kids, a lot of pain, because like I would exclude them from some of the things that I was doing with the other youth group, and I didn't know that was causing them pain. But you know, I was totally insensitive to that. I didn't find out years later, by the way, that had happened. And what I did was I told people the gospel on the estates, and we even had these outdoor church meetings sometimes. And from my first day in church, what happened was I started to get these insights, what I call insights, about certain things that I couldn't have known about, or like things to help people and make them feel better and comforted and stuff like that. And the church pastors said I had this gift, and that in the New Testament it's called the gift of prophecy. So that was 30 years ago, and what it did then, they said, right, what we're going to do is we're going to set you apart, and we're going to put you with this guy who I thought was just another weird prophetic-y, gospel-y type bloke. And they put me with him to help him with his ministry, and so that he could like help me to develop. And we did that for 3.5 years, and obviously we did that so I could become more like this guy. And what happened then was I did some training. This is years later. I did some leadership training, and I ended up leading the church. What happened was we felt it best to move the whole church to Sunderland. And I don't mean we felt it, I mean we prayed for 10 years about this and got the whole church ready. So off we went, and it wasn't to placate some enduring guilt over my choice of football team. We helped some people, and especially some Zimbabwean people who were helped. We did okay, and then suddenly we didn't do okay, and it was my fault, and I'd screwed up again. So what we did was I closed it down, and I mean I wasn't just on my own, there were other church leaders helping us at the time. We closed it down and we moved all the people to another church in Newcastle where they could be happier. But maybe it is a metaphor for the whole football team thing after all. But look, I started working in that church, and we thought it would just be like 6 months, but it turned into 11 years, as these things tend to do. I gave them our old building so they could sell it on in time and get the money for that. I took responsibility for everything that I saw that needed it, and there was a lot of that stuff. So there was computer systems and financial stuff and looking after the big building, and I had a business which had to be developed, and there was staff, and the prayer life of the church needed to be developed, and as well as that, helping the leader of the church through some really difficult times. So we did loads of good stuff in that church, and we achieved stacks. But I learned a lot, but I continually felt that I was constrained, and I almost lost my sense of humour. Like my wife said, I was like a caged lion. And it only took 11 years, but I realised I wasn't in the right place, and I was losing my joy, and it was starting to affect other people. So I stopped working there to take up another challenge without really knowing what it was. And that was 18 months ago, and since then me and the wife and the family have had more turmoil than we even do normally. I've been spending a lot of time in my own version of this cave. I've been mainly praying and drinking coffee, and my Facebook status has changed to man who talks to God a lot. I've had loads of people tell me what God thinks I should be doing. Well, they're telling me because they think God's telling them that, and that's really, really useful. So listen, I know this is the internet, and you're not really here with me right now, physically, but can you just do me a favour and pretend that we're having a walk around this cave together? Because it'll be good for you to see, because, not everybody can get up here. Well, we'll have a chat about what I'm thinking about doing and why, and it'll help me work it all out, I hope. Right, and so let's go. So, look, if you're not thinking, hang on a second, this is a bit weird, I don't really know this man and he's just spilling his guts out on a long video on the internet. Well, you probably should be thinking that, really. And I can see why you would think that anyway, but look, nothing could be further from the truth. I've never had much confidence, and there's too many scars left from your old dad for that. But after 15 years of working in churches, I lost all my self-confidence. Talking about self-confidence, you see that pillar there? That's the only thing holding this thing up, and I'm about to go inside there. I've put the high-def camera on to make it just a little bit better for you anyway. So look, after 15 years of trying to live the Christian life and doing the church ministry thing and being brought to nothing, I've come to a place in my life where I've just got to recognise I'm a nobody in a world of nobodies. And I'm nothing really more than an ugly fish in a sea of ugly fishes. And you know that thing about me being aware of God virtually from birth? Well, I've always tried to fit in. But the fact is that I just don't fit any mould. And I'm told it's that people like me are a little bit unusual. It's a bit like this cave, like it's not normally where you would go. We're a bit different, but in a good way, even if it doesn't always feel like that, like. And I don't think that means I amount to anything, because we're all unique and we're all special. But look, what I've realised is there's no such thing as normal, especially the person that put them underpants there, and yeah, you did see that right. But there's no authentic humanity apart from Jesus. And recently a pastor helped us, and he helped me know Jesus is pleased with what I've done so far, and I realised Jesus is my best friend. And that's a big deal for me, I have to say that. But because really I've just tried to do the God thing down the years, but it's only recently I've realised that he is really a good friend. And he wants me to do some more, even though I don't really think I amount to much. And some other people, look, that's somebody's like carved a monument into some people into there, like that's quite interesting, isn't it? Some other friends have said some helpful things too, and what's been said amounts to me opening up and using my gift more, not less. And I'm not this, even though that's how I feel, but I'm this, even though that's not how I feel. So I have to listen to people if that's what's being said to me. If it's something I can use to help other people and strengthen and serve the mission of some churches. Look, we're going to have a poke around in here. I'm fascinated by these little holes and pock marks and all the little bits of strata and all that kind of stuff. But after all that thinking and praying, I think the upshot is that I have to be less reluctant to be the person God wants me to be, and to be more willing to use the gift I've been given for the benefit of the church. And Jonah was a bit like that in the Bible. So basically I've got to stop hiding in my cave and come out and let the treasure out, as it were. But when I start to do that, which I'm about to do, I think so far I've learned that it's a big mistake to assume that people know my life story or how I got here. And I don't like talking about myself in this way, but generally speaking, people like a bit of context, which is why I'm laying this out for you like this. So this video is for people who are going to maybe hear of me doing stuff and say, like, hang on a minute, who's this bloke? Or even, who does he think he is, saying that and putting stuff on the internet? Poof! This tells you most of what you need to know about us. And the fact is, look, you've got to be somebody from somewhere, haven't you? I mean, Amos was a shepherd from Tekoa, it says in the Bible, and it says Jesus was a carpenter from Nazareth. And look, we're going to have a good dig around in here, like I don't know what that is, like we're digging around in my life at the minute. People have said a lot of stuff about me over the years, and most of it has to do with me not looking like what churchy leader people are expected to look like. But the fruit of my life is generally good, they say. So a couple of examples would be that I'm like a spindly orange tree that doesn't look like much, it's got, its branches are ugly and all that kind of stuff, but the fruit is disproportionately large. It's not quite what you expect. Or I'm like a cave that you'd walk past and not notice. Look, like this, here's a bit of interesting bit through there. Look at them trees, how you get the steepness of the bank there. Look how it's interesting. But I'm like a cave that you'd walk past and you'd not notice, but if you could be bothered to look inside, you'd see that it's full of treasure, like. But look, I think we're all like that, really. We're all full of treasure. It's like in the Bible where it says, a good man out of the good treasure of his heart brings forth good, and an evil man out of the evil treasure of his heart brings forth evil. For out of the abundance of his heart, his mouth speaks. And that applies to women as well, of course. And yeah, maybe like me, you've got your treasure buried inside a treasure chest deep down under the ground, even inside a cave, and you just need to work on getting it out a bit more. Right, so back this little window then. You can see how you'd walk past like and not notice what's inside. I'm trying to do a lot of things, but right now I want to share a bit more widely some insights that God has shown me over the last 20 years about the UK, because I think that might help some people at the minute. So just now what I'm doing is I'm busy making another video about that, and I'm doing this 100-mile walk, which in it has 3 significant sites that mark out the spread of Christianity from the northeast to the rest of the UK in the 7th century. And I bet you didn't know that had happened, like. So I'll be talking in that video about the time of St. Aidan and St. Oswald, because I think we're in a similar time, and that there's a major spiritual battle to be joined, not only for the eternal souls of men and women, because that's like a constant struggle, isn't it, but also for the preservation and integrity of the gospel, and even the definition of what church is in the UK. So I've made this detour on my walk, and he came on the scene later than Oswald and Aidan, but it's where St. Cuthbert used to pray and live as a hermit. And it's said that the monks of Lindisfarne had his dead body here, so that the Viking raiders couldn't get him when they came years later. Now, we can't all live in a cave. Well, you might be able to, but I cannot anyway. So for me, Starbucks has been a bit like that lately, except, with a bit of soft music and coffee and no dangerous blokies with pointy hats or the death thing. So you're caught up, and you might even be wondering what happens next then. I'm here at Durham Cathedral. So just a few feet through this wall is where Cuthbert's remains actually ended up. This is where he came, where they brought him. So the Vikings didn't get him after all. He's buried just a few feet through that wall in there. That's amazing. One of the things you might be asking yourself is this: why is he doing a 100-mile walk? Well, if you're Pentecostal or charismatic, you might say, I know what he's doing a prophetic sign. And if you're traditional, you might say, I know what he's doing a pilgrimage. I don't think it really matters myself. God knows what I'm doing. But whatever you think I'm doing, when you think about the cave I've just come from and this cathedral here, it's a bit like 2 different images that show some of what I've been thinking about and talking about. First, it's an imitation of the promise we have in Jesus. If you think of it like this, our eternal future is represented by the cathedral, and what we have now is represented by the cave. But somehow God has put the cathedral inside the cave, and this is why it matters. It matters because the good news about Jesus is the most important message to humankind that there's ever been. But everybody else in the world needs to see and hear about that good treasure that God's put in our hearts, and not the evil treasure that we bring out, however noble we think that stuff might be. The good stuff that'll make a difference comes from God, not from us, but it's in there. In my case, it's buried really deep, and it's my constant struggle to get out the good that's inside. But you may be different like. But look, if you struggle like me, that's why you should care. The second part of the image is it's like a picture of the Christian life. So as Christians, you and I might not think we amount to much, but the fact is, if you remember them green underpants in the cave, and I promise I didn't put them there myself, well, what God has put inside us isn't like some pair of green discarded underpants in a small rocky overhang pretending to be a cave in the middle of nowhere. The fact is, what we're like is more like a magnificent cathedral. We're full of beautiful things, and God's done that. And the God stuff inside of us is supposed to be seen, and that's what God's been telling me. It's supposed to be seen like this sticks out here, and you can see it, as opposed to that rocky outcrop in the middle of nowhere in Northumberland that you have to really work to get to. It's this, it's not that. And you're not full of green underpants, you're full of treasure. For my part, I'm going to try and open up a bit more and use what God's given me to help all kinds of people, but especially Christians in churches, because we've all got a part to play. And I would like everybody to know that God's real and that He cares about us, that He truly loves us, and He's in full control of the universe we find ourselves in spite of whatever might be in the news. My hope is that I can help other people gain strength by hearing from God, and that we can be encouraged together as we fight our battle of faith in a fallen world, and we can be comforted when our lives seem like a pile of dirty laundry hidden in a pile of rocks, and it's not like magnificent treasure in a cathedral. And even though loads of us struggle to let that treasure be seen, we should really remember it was God who decided to put that treasure inside us. And I feel useless when I think about it, and I think about the size of the challenge and how tiny and insignificant I am against the bigness of God. But no matter how small I am, or how reluctant, or how lacking in confidence, or how many mistakes I've made in my life, because there's loads of them, or how many times I have to start all over again, I've got to keep trying, because I can't help myself. And it's not because I think it's a good idea, but it's because it's the very nature of the treasure that God's put inside that makes me want to. Because it's Him. God is the treasure.